Hey y'all, I have just finished a conversation with my sister, Artisha Bolding, and I know that it is going to bless you. But I also want to take this time to thank our sponsors, John Travis, a financial coach and certified Kingdom advisor with Richard Young Associates, a registered investment advisor. I'd also like to thank Sense of Satisfaction by Cricket and Paul H. Bush, The Burning Bush. Those are some of our sponsors who have donated and made this possible. And I want to thank you if you have sown a seed into this. And if you haven't, please consider it, because it's testimonies like the one you see today that is going to bless people around the world. And I also want to take this moment to let my sister show you her book. What is it called?
The Patient is Wearing Lipstick.
You should get it. It will be referenced a lot in this conversation. And to get the full story, you'll read it there. So make sure you pick it up anywhere books are sold, Amazon, or you can contact her. We'll have her IG, Facebook, all that information, and you can get in touch with her. But stay tuned. This is going to be great. It's time to hear the story, make the connection, learn the lesson, and gain the wisdom. Are you ready? Let's get charged and be changed. The SisterSpeak+BrotherBreak show. Conversations on grace, healing, and deliverance. This is Marcy Bush. Come on, let's journey together. Hello, and thank you for joining us for the SisterSpeak+BrotherBreak show. Today, as I always do, I have a very special guest with me. And it really is special because this is actually my first repeat guest. I always end up telling them that I feel like you'll be back. Well, she's back. And this time, my guest is Artisha Bolding. And today we are going to be talking about soul ties, specifically ungodly soul ties. And before I start talking directly to Artisha, I just want to say that there are godly soul ties. If you reference the relationship between David and Jonathan, it was a godly soul tie. It says that their souls, their hearts were knit together. And if you read the story, Jonathan had David's back in such a way that lets you know it was God. So I believe that there are godly soul ties. And I think that, when it's someone that God has in your space and he wants that person to be a blessing to your life and you to their life, so many times we just get it mixed up because it is so tightly knit, because it is such a blessing. Sometimes we shift it to the romantic realm, and that's where we go left. We shift it to a place where it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But today, we're going to be talking about the ungodly soul ties. Maybe in a future show, we can talk about some people that did it right. But so y'all welcome with me our guest, Artisha Bolding. Hello.
Hey again.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you back. I knew we would end up revisiting. And so the way I know even about this is your book. So as I edited your book and became familiar with your story, I thought I knew. And then way over into the editing process, I found out some things that I didn't know, that I assumed, and they were incorrect. So that the people know what I'm talking about, tell us your story when it comes to ungodly soul ties.
So
let me interrupt. Let's talk about what an ungodly soul tie is. What is a soul tie?
So a soul tie, as I understand it, is when the essence of who you are is knit together with another. Okay. And as you said, that can happen in a positive way, mm-hmm. in a godly ordained way. Mm-hmm. But many times there is an energy exchange, mm-hmm. there is an imprinting of sorts, mm-hmm. that happens between two folks. And the easiest way that happens is through sexual activity.
Right.
And so where you were surprised in the process of editing my memoir is because I had an ungodly soul tie with a coworker of mine a few years ago when I was working at one of our local plants, and he and I became consumed with one another. And at the time, he was living with a woman and intended to have something long-term with her, as far as I knew. And I was already married for several years. I think we were coming up between 6 and 7 years at the time. And we started off as friends, but through that energy exchange and through some manipulation, we had an ungodly soul tie, and we became knit in a way that was not ordained nor pleasing to God.
Okay. So how did you know, like when you talk about the energy exchange, can you tell me a little bit more about like what that encompasses, or what do you mean by that?
So for myself, I always refer to myself as a pew baby. I grew up in church. I've literally been in church my entire life, but I love it. I love the culture. I love what it does for me. I love the idea of getting my soul fed and ministered to as I minister to others. That has always been my thing. And so I am a woman of faith and a woman of character and integrity. And so the more I was in communication and relationship with this particular guy, my character had a shift. I found myself being more secretive, more deceitful, even kind of defensive of him. And so I noticed that shift, but by the time I really understood what had happened, I was so deeply connected that I couldn't really see my way out, and I didn't know if I wanted to get out. So it was very interesting.
So even when you talk about that energy exchange, I remember one time, because the devil will, you feel the vibe.
Absolutely.
You will feel the zzz. I remember I was going down the road one day and grabbed hands with somebody and literally felt zzz. I was like, did you feel that? The devil. That's what it was. It sure wasn't God. Like, but I mean, and the thing is, when you're in that space, rather than be like, okay, time to back off. It's like, ooh, that's a sign. It is.
It's seductive. It's intriguing. It's of course pleasing to the flesh. It's the same thing. Like when you take that first bite of chocolate cake, it's like, wow, this tastes good, this feels good, and before you know it, you've eaten the half of the cake. Sick to your stomach.
And the thing is, with like you said, the energy exchange, the whatever, there's this high. I'm sure if we looked up in the psychological data or whatever, there is something that's released. Because this person just become like, you can finish each other's sentences. You can feel what the next move is. And it's all the enemy. You know, like when we talked about the godly soul ties, I believe that there are times when, you can anticipate, you can know. That's how you know how to pray for people. You know how to. But it, like I said, it's when that thing goes left. And so some of the people that God would, in the perfect will of God, we could have been that person's prayer partner for life. We could have been that person's person that they thought. But once you cross lines, both people have to then, in order to get it corrected, both people got to submit to God. Both people you got to go through some fire to get that thing back right.
Absolutely.
So as this started, so was there like flirtation? Was there just, and this is something that our spiritual father taught us too. When a woman is in need of something, what she thinks she needs, because sometimes what we think we need is actually a want. But when that flesh feels like it needs something, it's craving something, there are times when the enemy Just like God has a prophetic word and God can give people prophetic insight, the devil can give people insight so that they know exactly what it is that you need to hear, how you need to be treated, all that good stuff. So, all that bad stuff. So, what were some of in the beginning, before it got thick, what were some of the things that kind of ended you going over that threshold into that arena?
So I have to reference the Usher song because it's just a point of reference that most people can connect with. And he says, "You make me want to leave the one I'm with and start a new relationship with you."
Okay.
And in the song, he talks about this friend or partner of sorts, and he began speaking with this friend about the woes of his relationship. And then there was that seduction and draw to the one he was confiding in, and that made him want to build a relationship with that person. That was our story. So we both had complaints, things that we didn't like that were going on at home, and you see this person and they become highlighted in the way, and they're like, that person wouldn't act like what's happening at home, and this would be so much better if we were together. We're speaking the same language, we're having the same issues. Maybe this is something that we should try. And it becomes it becomes an exhilaration and exciting. And as you and I had chatted before, your thoughts can become consumed by the person. And again, that's when I knew something was off, because at the time I was working 50 and 60 hours per week. And so I was around this person a lot more so than I was my family or even my church family. And having those kinds of hours when I wasn't on the job site, all I wanted to do was grab something to eat and go to sleep. I didn't want to talk to anyone or anything. But in times where we weren't on site, I found myself wanting to text, wanting to check in, wanting to chat. And then that's when the deceit comes in, because then you're saying, well, I'm going to run to the store, when in fact you're just trying to get out of the house so you can either call or meet the person. And so when things start pulling you out of your normal character, when you find yourself having to hide what you're doing,
secretive,
your habits are completely shifting, then that is a blaring alarm that there's an ungodly soul tie, there's an ungodly energy exchange there.
Yeah, I remember reading, and you were talking about how I think really early on into you starting at that job, one of the young girls or somebody asked you if that was your man or something.
Yes, I'm trying not to holler laughing because that is so funny. Because I was almost offended, like he could never, like, have you seen him? Have you seen me? Why would you even ask me that? But just a few months later.
And then you said the titles started flying: work wife, work husband.
Yes, it is. I have made it a part of my mission. Any girl, any lady that is connected to me knows that work wife title is a no-no for me, because it is a slippery slope to that imprinting, to that obligation, and to that entitlement. Bring me lunch, spend time with me, take my advice, do as I say. And it really is a dangerous thing to start.
Because even if somebody throws it out there, like you said, there's this imprint, there's this unknown seed that gets planted in the psyche. And if you don't just overtly say, oh no, you will find yourself beginning to do the things. Oh, they don't have time to do it. I got you. Oh, you wouldn't even do that for your spouse. You wouldn't even do that for your mama. But all of a sudden, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll bring it. Girl, look, just like you said, I got some leftovers, and it seems so harmless. But that's why we have to be so careful to be true to ourselves about our motives.
Yes.
About our motives. Like I said, it's people who don't even want to fix their husband's dinner for lunch for the next day.
Yes.
But will pack that extra to take to the job.
Yes.
And there may be some people watching like, that don't mean nothing. Check yourself.
Check it. Slippery slope.
Yeah, because even if you think it doesn't, like a seed doesn't come up overnight. It's watered. It's tended. And before you know it, it has come up in that ground. It has come through. And it will be something, like you say, it starts out and I think that's the danger. So many times it starts out seemingly so innocent. It's just, we talk about work, and then when the texts start turning from work related to other related, and like you said, talking about your relationship, that's something that doesn't need to be discussed with them,
And the thing about it is, we know, okay, we live in a real world. Everybody is not a believer.
Right.
Everybody does not conduct their lives according to the Bible, but we do. That we feel like we've chosen better. And so that's the point of place where we speak from, right? And so the Bible guides us in those things. The Bible tells us to guard our heart.
Yes.
And we, in fact, have to put
For
up
out
those
of it
guards.
flows the issues of life.
Absolutely.
When you got all that flowing out on somebody else, it flows. Yeah, and like you said, even because here's the other thing, but they're a Christian, they go to church, and and sometimes it's even, honey, because we're talking about work, but I've heard of prayer partners.
Yes.
Prayer partners end up doing other things. Yes, bed partners.
Yes.
And it's because you begin to take your guard down, you begin to divulge too much information, you begin to go outside of the realm. And like you said, for me, I believe one of the key factors, and you talked about it earlier, is that secrecy.
Yes.
When you don't want anybody to know, when it's like, when you're not talking to that person in front of other people.
Yes.
Or when you do enough in person, like around the other one, but then you got all of a sudden slip to the bathroom.
Yes.
Or go to the car to get something because the conversation's about to shift.
Yes.
All those things are signs that you're in a soul tie.
Flag on the play.
Yeah, okay.
Big red flag.
Okay. So how did it progress, this particular? Because we're doing your testimony. We're tying it in, but this is your testimony. So how did it progress?
So, well, let me go back to the beginning of this kind of imprinting. So there was a time when, I want to say it was a holiday, I'm fairly certain it was around Thanksgiving, and very rare thing, we were getting off work a little bit early, the assignment was done, and whoever had the idea of, well, let's just grab a little breakfast. We have free time, no one is expecting us to be home yet, so let's grab some breakfast. And so there's an inkling in the back of your mind. You can call it what you want, but that's a date. That is a date. And so we began having these dates, these meetings, under the guise of friends, but knowing that it was building to something else, And the more stories that we shared, the more complaints that we shared, again, the more we became highlighted to each other that, this is something that we could try. And so, like, our conversations went way left. Like, okay, no, you stay married, you stay with your person, then we'll just have our thing. And then that's just the best of both worlds. And then as time progressed, it was just like, no, we should, get rid of what we have at home and then explore the two of us. So it was just a steady progression because of the time together, because of the constant communication, because of us not letting others in. It was just us. So in other words, we became our own ministers, our own prophets. We spoke into each other. We exchanged ideas. No one else was in our little world, so no one could tell us that it was wrong. No, we didn't leave room for anyone to provide us any type of godly counsel.
Yes, yes. And because I know even, and this was before I was in college, and in college there was somebody that I was with, all except sleeping hours, it seemed. And so even though I didn't know there was crazy stuff being said, which it was a crazy relationship, but it wasn't what people were saying. But nobody could, even though people were concerned about me, there was no space to say anything because it's my best friend.
Yes.
And so who's going to come tell you about your best friend talking about you? You know, there was no space. Like you said, in those ungodly relationships, we end up edging so many people out. So now there are some people who just blatantly, they got their circle of friends because they ain't going to call them on that. They ain't going to check them on nothing. So there are times when you may be surrounded by people, but it's people who messy like you.
Exactly right.
And those people won't call you on it, so you're comfortable with that. But it's still that tightly knit, because still nobody else from the outside is getting in. So continue. You said y'all started having the little dates, and then I remember reading that like you would, it got to the point where you just shower and then y'all get back together. Like you'd go home from work, take your shower, change clothes, and then back together.
Yes, at that time, I had decided, because the reason there was an opening for this is because I had notions of what should and should not be going on in my marriage, and I felt that I had broached the conversation with my husband to no avail, and I kind of gave up on it. You know, you get to a point where you feel like this is all I can do. I've done all that I can. That wasn't the truth, but that was the story I told myself. That was the story that I told this other person, and you know, they took advantage of that. And so it progressed to the point where we were separated, my husband and I. We were living in different states, and then I felt free to fly then. Yes. So then, and then he, same thing, moved out from with the lady that he was with, and so then it was just all us all the time. So working 50 hours, going home, taking a shower, hanging out, watching movies, drinking beer, just things that so far from who I know that I was, but just becoming this entirely different personality.
Yeah. And so even then, because I think that's like, I just assumed, I mean, was somebody, because at that point, it really, once your husband was out of the picture for the moment, his female friend was gone, it really was y'all two then, because probably even when you were supposed to be sleeping, or even if you were sleeping, you were still together.
Yes.
And so people are thinking, child, she just got off from work. She probably home knocked out. And here's the other thing too. Honey, you get energy like no other. When you're doing what you're not supposed to be doing.
Not supposed to be doing it.
Yes.
You literally get
stay up till the break of dawn.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, the enemy. But I mean, it's amazing how that it just comes, because it's feeding something.
Yes.
That's unhealthy.
Yes.
It's feeding something. It's not just it's like a cancer.
Yes.
It takes over. It takes over. I want to share, I was looking at something last night, and there were some signs of having formed a soul tie. I still want to continue talking about yours, but I just want to drop this here. You talked about your thoughts are consumed with the other person. that decisions are based on the other person. It's like you don't fully have your mind anymore.
No.
Everything you acquiesce to what the other,
Yes.
you think about what would the other person want.
Yes.
You struggle in your spiritual life.
Yes.
And as we were talking before, it's like, besides that, nobody can say anything about that person.
No.
Like, if you don't openly defend them, everything in you is going off.
Yes.
And it's kind of like even what happens a lot of times when parents see their daughter spending too much time with a guy, and they try to say something, all they're going to do is cling all the more.
Yes.
Now, they still, as a parent, they need to do what they got to do. But a lot of times, the person will cling all the more to the other person and become even more secretive because you don't want me with them. And what's wrong with it? And it's when the people that you know and love and have always respected, your friends, people who know, like, you respect what they say, but all of a sudden. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you've been blessed by today's show, feel free to let us know. And if you'd like to sow into this ministry, become a sponsor, or contact us, you can reach us at 803-221-0169. Or you can email us at the ssbbshow@gmail.com. Let's continue this journey together. Missed any of our past episodes? The pain that I've gone through, I've been through lots. Depression, perversion, low self-esteem, rejection. But I'm here, and I'm loving life, and I'm changed forever. I'm trying to maim you, to leave you, like, physically and mentally maim you, or he wanted your life.
I don't think he so much wanted my life is that he wanted some results. He wanted me to stay in the earth and not be who I am now.
Piece where you start talking about it was your love walk.
Yes.
We had an opportunity to not only share our experience, but find out that there were so many women in the room who had similar experiences.
Advice would you give to people who find themselves in the grips of grief right now?
The pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional.
You were still sick, you still weren't well, but did something change for you when they gave it a name?
Yes, because once they put a label on it, I felt like it was putting a label on me.
Catch up on past shows on my YouTube channel at Marcy Bush, MarceyBush. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes.